Hello Internet, welcome back to my channel Tromsø Twilight, where I, Vincent, talk to you from Arctic Norway about movies, books and music that I enjoy, although I haven't spoken about any music yet. This week it is Tromsø International Film Festival, and this is the second of my videos talking about the movies that I've seen at the festival. I took a break on Wednesday. On Thursday I saw two movies. The first was a film called Memoria, which was directed by Victoria Verseau. It's a film about her. She travelled to Thailand some years back to get surgery, bottom surgery, genital surgery, as gender realignment. And she met a woman there. They stayed in the same hotel and they got surgery at the same time. Became very good friends, and then this friend died by suicide 3 years later. The film is Victoria's attempt to come to terms both with the loss of her friend and with her own transition. She travelled to the same place with two other friends who were also trans women, and a lot of the film is a mixture of her reflections that she's written, footage that doesn't always connect necessarily with what she's talking about, and footage of them talking to each other about their experiences. It's partly about suicide, it's partly about trans identity. It's the most kind of detailed I've ever seen anything talk about bottom surgery. One of the things I think is it's weird to say that it's a problem with the film because it's obviously very much about her own experience, but there's a lot of emphasis on bottom surgery as part of trans identity, which has a whole history within Scandinavia. In Scandinavia, at least in Norway, for a long time you had to get that surgery if you wanted to be able to change your gender officially. And they only changed the law a few years ago. But they talk quite a lot about the kind of details around it that a lot of people outside the trans community don't know about, like having to work to keep the vagina open, for example, and also that it doesn't necessarily do the same things that everybody thinks that it might do. Just like quickly, it doesn't talk about this directly in the film, but quickly summarized, when people get surgery to get a vagina, they have to choose between two of three elements: depth, appearance on the outside, and the ability to experience pleasure. And you can only have two. You have to sacrifice one. And there's a scene in the film that's quite kind of moving where she's talking to her friend about her particular experience with her vagina and how she feels about that. I didn't love the documentary, but I really, really liked her. Both she presented it and also in the film, so I was very endeared to it. It was like super, super personal. Okay, the second thing I saw was A Different Man, which is written and directed by Aaron Schimberg. A Different Man stars Sebastian Stan as a character called Edward, who in the universe of the film has a disorder which disfigures his face. He lives next door to a beautiful woman played by Renate Reinsve, who is an aspiring playwright. They become friends. Then he gets medical treatment, which restores his face to Sebastian Stan's face, and hopes that life will be different and better. The film is like a super New York film in its kind of very meta intellectual kind of style, in its location, in its tone. It even references Woody Allen at one point. It's funny, it's very creative, it's super smart, but it also kind of is that kind of smart film that is about being smart and about kind of presenting the whole world and everybody in it as super pretentious. So how much you like it will depend very much on how much you like feeling very clever in the cinema. It has some great jump scares in it, which is weird because it's not a horror film. So that was Thursday. Friday, the first movie I went to see was this Japanese film from 1981 called Sailor Suit and Machine Gun. This film is directed by Shinji Sōmai, and it stars an actress called Hiroko Yakushimaru, who was like a teen idol in the 80s. The concept of the film is that a teenage girl accidentally or like in without being prepared inherits the leadership of a yakuza gang. So she's suddenly the leader of this small gang of Japanese criminals. It looks like the poster is her in her school uniform with a machine gun. It's called Sailor Suit and Machine Gun. So I was expecting it to be some like wild, like B movie, violent thing, but it's actually like it's tonally closer to like Karate Kid or something. It was like super sweet, but in a weird kind of way. People kept getting killed. Um, I was waiting for the whole film for this scene with the machine gun, and when it came, it was like really strange. It wasn't like cathartic or anything. She just got the machine gun, and then there was slow mo and weird sound effects. I didn't love it, I have to say. There was a dude there who was introducing it, who had chosen it for the program, and he was like, everybody knows this movie in Japan, but people thought that it wasn't good enough for an international audience. They were so wrong, and I was like, were they though? Were they wrong? After that, I saw the film All We Imagine as Light, which is written and directed by Payal Kapadia, starring Kani Kusruti and Divya Prabha. The two main actresses in the film play nurses at a hospital in Mumbai, and the film is about their friendship and about their relationships. I'm not going to say too much more about it now because it might be my favourite film of the festival, in which case I want to come back and talk about it in full. But basically, one of them, the character Prabha, is married, but her husband left almost immediately after the marriage. So she's married, but she doesn't have a husband. She lives with the other character, Anu, who is a Hindu girl in a relationship with a Muslim boy. So the film is sort of about how it is to be a woman in India today, um, about gender relationships, about class, culture, and friendship. The sound design is so great, and the locations are beautiful. The music is great. It looks fantastic. It has a sex scene in it that is without doubt the hottest thing I've seen in the festival so far. Either way, recommended. Then at the end of Friday night, I went to the what was the old swimming pool here, which they've now set up a kind of cinema seating arrangement, and then with inside the pool, and then a screen on like the back windows, and there they were showing a silent movie from 1926 called "With Reindeer and Sled in Inka Länta's Winterland." This is a mockumentary from the 20s that was written and directed by Erik Bergström, a Swedish guy who went up to northern Sweden and made a film that was like supposed to document the life of the indigenous people, the Sami people there. It's kind of ethnographic, kind of othering, like a little bit potentially kind of patronizing in tone, but they had Sami musicians doing new music, a live soundtrack, and the combination of the film and the music was really powerful. One thing that really stuck out to me was that there's a scene of the local children at the school, and Sami children in Swedish schools were not allowed to speak their language. They were subjected to a lot of abuse, and the images are of children playing and running around and are very kind of cute. But it was the only moment where they almost removed all the music and they just had like this school bell ringing, and this kind of slightly creepy synthesizer chord. So it made the whole sequence kind of quite unsettling. This whole event is something that you would only ever really see in Arctic Scandinavia with indigenous local musicians. A film that's been restored from the Swedish Film Archive. It's like really a privilege and an opportunity to be able to be at this event, complete one off. All right, that brings us up to Saturday, which is today. I've seen 2 films so far today. I'm going to see a third this evening. This morning I saw Babygirl. This is a kind of erotic drama starring Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson, and it's written and directed by Halina Rejin, who is a Dutch actress and filmmaker. Nicole Kidman plays an established and successful businesswoman with a husband and 2 children, and then Harris Dickinson is her intern, who initiates a kind of dominant relationship towards her where they begin to play kind of kink games and they develop a relationship outside of her marriage. Harris Dickinson is channeling Ryan Gosling as if Ryan Gosling was dead already. He's maybe being a bit more of a smouldering version, but he's very much like young Ryan Gosling, in my opinion. Nicole Kidman is excellent in the film. The film is very well made. In my opinion, the absolute strength of the film is the writing, especially the dialogue. It's completely convincing, and it's as if every line is significant. It's very emotionally compelling, quite stressful at times, quite beautiful at other times, very moving. The only thing is, in my opinion, it's not particularly erotic. Like, if you compare it to Secretary, which in some ways has very similar themes, Secretary is like a super erotic film, whereas this film has all of the kind of elements, but I don't know if maybe it's just something in the dynamic that doesn't do it for me. But that's one thing. If you're expecting a super sexy film, I don't think you're really going to find it here. But if you're looking at a film that's exploring kink dynamics and relationships and psychology, you probably will like it a great deal. Then Emilia Pérez is the second film that I saw today. This film is just wild. It's just completely off the chain wild. It's about trans experience, kind of, but almost in the same way that Mrs. Doubtfire is about trans experience. It stars a trans actress, Carla Sofia Gascon, I guess her name is. She's fucking great in this film. At the beginning, she's like a cartel boss, and then she undergoes the transition where she seems to get like all her surgery at the same time and come back fully transitioned, and then kind of lives a second life where she starts to be a campaigner for the disappeared in Mexico. I've seen super huge amounts of online drama and outrage about this film around different aspects of it. One thing is there's a song where the kid is singing to her, "You smell like my papa," and people are saying this is like really offensive because she wouldn't smell like a man after she's been going on hormone therapy. But that's quite a stupid criticism because it's in the film that she was on hormone therapy for 2 years before she left her family, so the child would remember the smell of her while she was taking estrogen. The other thing is that the way they incorporate the story of the disappeared, when very few of the people involved in making the film were Mexican. In my opinion, that's not offensive in and of itself. I will say that tonally, parts of the stuff where they are looking at that is weird, like disturbing. I don't know if that's necessarily wrong, morally wrong, but it's very strange. There must be 4 or 5 parts of this film where I just was in like pure cinema joy, from the visuals, the sound, the use of music. There's a scene where they're like loading up guns and it's all choreographed and the sounds are all percussive sounds in the movie soundtrack because the movie is also a musical. And there's sort of these raggaton parts of the musical numbers where they're sort of speaking parts of dialogue. It's so intense and the choreography is completely like compelling. There was something about the film as a whole that was like so wild and messy that it was almost like it makes Almodovar look restrained. It kind of meant that for me it didn't necessarily hang together in a way, and yet the pure melodrama of it, moment by moment, and the pure visual spectacle of it was you'd have to really be fighting it to not be moved and drawn along with it. Absolutely, if you're ever going to see it at the cinema. Okay, then I am up to date. Tonight I am seeing a horror film called The Wailing, and then I'm seeing 3 or 4 more films over the next couple of days. I'll come back with the final film, the final video, and also see if I can choose a favourite. If I can choose a favourite, I'll make a video specifically about that film and why I like it. Thank you for watching my video to the end, if indeed you did. If you're hearing these thanks, then you in fact did. I have been Vincent. This is Tromsø Twilight. If you liked it, please click like, maybe write a comment, please subscribe. If you didn't like it, just let it go.